Hey, hello. Thank you all for joining Authors Republic today for today's webinar. The goal of our webinars is to help indie authors learn from self-publishing leaders and provide the opportunity to ask these experts direct questions. So with that goal in mind, we're thrilled to welcome Ricardo Fayet from Reedsy today. Ricardo is one of the co-founders and the chief marketing officer at Reedsy. He oversees all marketing for Reedsy products and has helped hundreds of authors with their own book launches and marketing campaigns. He's also an author himself and frequently presents at top writers conferences. Reedsy, as many of you may know, connects authors with qualified industry freelancers, including top marketers. And in addition to their community of freelance professionals, Reedsy offers free educational content for self-published authors. So Ricardo is going to give a presentation on how to boost your audiobook sales today. And then following that, we'll have a live Q&A. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A spot on the Zoom, and we'll get to as many as possible at the end of the webinar. So with that, I will pass it on to Ricardo.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for the very nice introduction. Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit today about audiobook marketing and a few strategies to boost your sales. I have worked, aside from my work on Reedsy, I've worked personally with authors for the past decades on their marketing campaigns, on their launches, on their promos, etc. Not always on audiobooks, obviously. It's generally cross-format, but I have a few tidbits of experience with specific audiobook marketing. And yeah, I'll share everything that I've learned from the past few years. As you just heard, I'm Ricardo Fayet. I'm one of the four founders at Reedsy. I always like putting my my email on the first slide so that you can write it down. It's fairly easy to remember, ricardo@reedsy.com. There'll be a Q&A at the end of this, but if there's any question that you want to ask me directly via email, like if it's a personal thing, or you want me to look at your book or your audiobook, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, just feel free to email me. That's the place where I will be the most responsive. I just realized I'm not sharing my slides, am I? No. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to share my slides now. That's better. Sorry about that. So there you go. That's my email address, ricardo@reedsy.com. Cool. Yeah, Reedsy is, Reedsy is a lot of things. We're mostly known for our marketplace of publishing professionals. So that's a place where you can come and look for, say, an editor, a copy editor, a proofreader, a cover designer, an illustrator, a ghostwriter, a translator, website designer, or a marketer. Since we're going to be talking a lot about marketing today, that's one of the elements, obviously, that you can use Reedsy for. And as part of our friendship with Authors Republic, we've created this special link, reedsy.com/loves/Authors Republic, where you can sign up to Reedsy and get $50 of credit that will apply as a discount on your first collaborations on Reedsy. So if you hire someone through Reedsy, you'll get $50 off if you sign up with that link. And another thing I wanted to talk about is our writing tool, Reedsy Studio. It's not as well known as our marketplace, so that's why I'm insisting a little bit on it, but it's basically a free tool where you can come and outline your manuscript, write it in real time, distraction free. It's collaborative as well, so you can co-write, you can invite an editor or proofreader afterwards in there. You can set daily writing goals, and you get emails if you don't meet them. Yeah, it basically has a ton of features. It integrates a little bit of Plotter, a little bit of Scrivener, a little bit of Google Docs. So if you've never played with it and you don't have one writing tool that that you would die for, then give it a try and see if it works for you. All right, now down to the presentation. Here's what we'll talk about today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about audiobook distribution, because your choice of distribution will obviously impact the marketing strategies that you have access to and that you should use. I'm going to talk about audiobook marketing specifically versus ebook marketing and how a lot of times there's not really a difference. I'm going to talk about price promotions, which are now a really important tool for audiobook marketing as well. And we're going to talk about Chirp in particular. I'm going to talk about the power of bundles. and then advertising through Meta and BookBub, which for me are the two main advertising platforms for audio. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about how to integrate audiobooks in your direct sales and some kind of creative ideas that you can leverage around that. So without further ado, let's jump into the first section on exclusive versus wide audio distribution. So if you guys distribute already with Authors Republic, you're wide, so you already know some of this. But for those of you who don't, for those of you who may still, be working on your first audiobook, you have two main options when it comes to distributing your audiobooks nowadays, right? Same as for ebooks, but with some important differences. So the first option is to use, ACX, which is Amazon owned, and enroll into their exclusivity program where your audiobook will only be available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books, right? If you're exclusive, Amazon loves rewarding people for their exclusivity, to put it nicely. So they will reward you with higher royalties among all the things. The other option is to go wide. All right, if you go wide, you distribute usually in as many places as possible. When it comes to audiobooks, you don't really have a choice if you're wide aside from using an aggregator like Authors Republic, which makes it really, really easy to hit a bunch of different stores at once and to make sure that your audiobooks are in as many possible stores as you can. I think the number one tip I give for wide marketing is making sure that you're in as many places as you can, right? Because once you're wide, there's no real benefit for not going somewhere. You might as well go in that other place, even though you may only get 1 or 2 sales over there. That's 1 or 2 sales you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So quick pros and cons of exclusivity. Obviously, the main thing in favor of being exclusive to ACX is the higher royalties. You get 40% instead of 25%. The simple distribution, you only distribute through there, and the fact that ACX gives you promo codes. Those promo codes are limited in number. They're only redeemable on Audible, and you can actually get promo codes elsewhere, so it's not that big of a deal. But really, the thing is the higher royalties on Audible. That's the main thing. The cons are numerous. First, you have a restricted reach. You are only on Audible and Apple Books. Now there's a bunch of other platforms like Spotify, so it's not necessarily as interesting. I will say as well that the audiobook market is a lot more fragmented than the ebook one. I think Amazon's done a really good or terrible job, that's like depending on your viewpoint, on like controlling the ebook market and having 80% of ebook sales in most English-speaking countries. That's really not the case for audio sales, right? So don't be under the impression that Audible is like 80% of the market, because they're definitely not. I don't know what the latest figures are, but yeah, Lindsay probably knows this better than I do and can share those in the chat, but it's a lot more fragmented. The main con for me of being exclusive when it comes to audiobooks is that you don't have control over price, right? And that's a really, really big thing, because even on the ebook side, if you're exclusive, you have that control over price, right? You can run price promos. With audiobooks, you can't. Amazon Audible will just set the price for you, right? Which is also the case if you go wide. In your wide distribution to Amazon, you're not going to choose your price on Amazon, but you can choose your price elsewhere. And then there's also the fact that it's a long-term deal. It's a 7-year commitment in theory, so you can get out of it now after 90 days if you're not royalty sharing with the narrator you hired through ACX. But it's still it's been a pretty bad deal for a number of years, and even though they've made it more acceptable now, it doesn't really bode in favor. So the pros and cons of wide distribution, well, the main pro is the broader reach. You get also higher royalties everywhere except on Amazon and Audible, right? You get to control your price, which is, again, the number one thing for me. You get the ability to sell direct. That's another actual big one. If you're exclusive to Audible, to ACX, obviously you cannot sell anywhere else, including your own website. So you cannot sell direct unless you're white. And one of the big pros as well, same as you get ACX promo codes if you use ACX and you're exclusive with them. If you use Authors Republic, you can get Authors Republic and Spotify promo codes as well. So you can sort of replicate the same thing. The main disadvantage, obviously, is lower royalties on Audible. Slightly more complicated distribution because you're in a bunch more different places. But if you use an aggregator, it's not really that big a deal. And finally, the sales fragmentation might make it more challenging to rank highly on individual platforms. That's like one thing I'll say is obviously all your marketing is centered on Audible to get sales on Audible, and you're pushing all your fan base to Audible, then obviously your ranking will be higher on there than if you gave them the option to grab it on Audible or on Apple Bots or on Kobo or Barnes and Noble, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the more options you offer, the more fragmented your sales will be, and so it may be harder to get those really high rankings on the platforms that matter the most, which are still Audible. Anyway, so that was it in terms of exclusivity versus wide. I personally am a big proponent of wide, but I will give you strategies in the rest of this presentation that can work for both of these, right? So the first thing I'll say is that the best way to market your book, in my opinion, to market your audiobook is to just market your book in general, right? A lot of times I get questions about how do I specifically market my audiobook? I want to boost my audiobook sales. I just invested this much into an audiobook narration. I need to recoup that. How do I get those audiobook sales? And for me, it's not really, obviously there's ways that you can focus your marketing on the audio aspect, and we'll talk about that. But in my opinion, marketing isn't necessarily format specific, right? Here I've been looking at the bestsellers that was probably yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was looking at the bestsellers in the Kindle store and on Audible. And you can see there's some differences, but if you look at the whole top 100 list, there's a lot of overlap, right? There's going to be some romance that does better in ebook format than in audiobook format. But you get the latest Susan Collins book that's #1 in both lists. On the one you get Fourth Wing, but Onyx Storm is not far behind on the Kindle store, and on Audible you get Onyx Storm. If you look at Apple audiobooks, I'll show a screenshot later, you'll see Fourth Wing in there. So it's more or less the same books that are going to trend both in the ebook, print, and audiobook bestseller lists. There's going to be some differences, but not necessarily as many to warrant specific marketing for a format. In my opinion, readers discover books first and formats second, right? You don't hear about you've got to get this amazing audiobook. People will say, have you read this book or have you listened to this book? I really recommend it. And then you as a reader, you have your personal preference as to whether you prefer to consume that content in digital format, in print, or in audio. But the real entity that you want to market is the book yourself, right? One thing that I think makes it really powerful to market the book as a whole and the ebook in particular to drive audiobook sales is Amazon's Whisper Sync feature. Right? I think it's a feature that we don't give them enough credit for. I'm the first person who's going to be critical of Amazon, but that Whisper Sync feature is really a game changer. So if you're not aware of that feature, it basically allows the owner of an ebook to purchase the audiobook at a discount. So I've got this this horror novel that I bought last year, right? And if I want the audiobook now, I can just go to the product page on Amazon, go to the audiobook, and here I see this little thing, Whisper Sync for voice. Great news! You already own the Kindle edition. You can add audio for just £3.49, and that's a 73% discount versus just purchasing the audiobook on its own if I hadn't purchased the ebook. So that'd be £12.99. Right. And that's actually how I personally buy a lot of my audiobooks. I don't love the Audible membership just because I don't consume a ton of audiobooks to warrant a membership. But what I do is when there's authors I know and who run a price promotion on their ebooks, let's say a fancy author I follow who discounts a first in series at $0.99, I'm going to grab that first in series at $0.99, even though I'm probably not going to read the ebook because maybe I listen more in audiobook, right? But I'm going to grab that ebook for $0.99 just because I know that once I have the ebook, I'm going to get a 70% discount on the audiobook, right? Through the Whisper Sync feature. And there's actually, if you start Googling Whisper Sync, you're going to see a ton of blog posts, videos, there's a bunch of TikTok, YouTube, etc. videos out there from listeners, from readers explaining how you can get really, really cheap audiobooks using that Whisper Sync feature, right? So all that to say, sometimes the best way to market your audiobook is just to market your ebook. Run a price promotion on your ebook, and then let your readers or listeners know that they can get a really good deal on the entire bundle. For example, I run a 99-cent promo on the ebook, and then I check my Amazon page and I can see that people can get the audiobook as well for $3.99. What do? I tell my entire list, and maybe I run ads, or wherever I promote this, this ebook price promotion, I also mention, hey, you can get the ebook for 99 cents, but you can also get the ebook plus the audiobook for under $5, right? And that's a really, really sweet deal. So price promotions on ebooks become even more attractive with WhisperSync discounts, right? So how do you make sure your books qualify for WhisperSync? So Amazon will typically enable WhisperSync if the audiobook matches the ebook text by 96% or more. So basically, if you have published the ebook and then you're going to have a narration of the audiobook, and for whatever reason you decide to do, a second edition of the text for the audiobook, then the audiobook's not going to match the ebook, and so you're not going to get the WhisperSync feature. So I will recommend always having an audiobook that basically matches the ebook, so you're over that 96% threshold. Direct uploads via ACX will typically enable quicker WhisperSync eligibility, and they say in the documentation that after 30 days you can contact ACX support to inquire as to your WhisperSync activation status. But if you distribute your audiobook to Amazon via, Authors Republic or another aggregator, you won't have that direct communication, but you still have WhisperSync eligibility, right? I think most authors I know will still get the WhisperSync. It's not 100% in your control, and you won't have that direct line of support with Amazon, which isn't always all that helpful, but you should still be able to get the WhisperSync. And as soon as you have it, I think running these kind of promotions is really, really powerful. So that was kind of the first step of first strategy. The second one is, like we've talked about, discounting your ebook and how that can lead to audiobook sales as well, is discounting your audiobook, obviously, right? Price promotions are still one of the most effective methods for boosting ebook sales, but price promotions have been going on for a while on the ebook side of things, right? I still remember the first indie authors back in 2011, 2012, who ran their first price promos, like Hugh Howey on Wool, for example. When they set their ebook free or at $0.99, they got like 10,000 downloads or 5,000 sales just because they ran that price promo, because no one was doing that kind of thing at that point. Now everyone's doing it, right, on the ebook side of things, but on the audiobook side of things, price promotions are still a lot newer. Obviously, in order to be able to, drop the price of your audiobook, you need to have control over the price of your audiobook in the first place. As you may remember, you don't have price control if you are on Audible on Amazon. Like whether you're exclusive, to ACX, or you go wide, you will not be able to control the price of your audiobooks that are sold on Audible and Amazon. Right. The price will be determined at Amazon's discretion based on the length of the audiobook, and they might discount it at their discretion from time to time. Right. And it's really hard to understand how they pay you in terms of royalties, because there's like memberships as well and credits. It's a bit of a nightmare, but the point is you don't have a price control. So you cannot say, hey, I'm going to drop my audiobook to $0.99 for a week on Amazon to boost my sales. That's just not possible. You don't control the price. You do control the price, however, on the other retailers, right? And in particular on Chirp. In those places, the price is controlled by the publisher. What I was saying earlier is, that audiobook discounts, they're still very new and they're still very exciting. So they can actually, provide a boost in sales without you doing much more than just dropping the price, right? The reason for that is that traditional publishers currently don't run a lot of price promotions on audiobooks. They're starting, so I'm actually just saw that. And indie authors distributing, obviously, exclusively through ACX can discount their audiobooks. So audiobook discounts, they're still very new, and so there's not a lot of competition out there, which means that when you discount something, you get a little bit more visibility. So here I was looking 2 days ago at this is the Apple Books bestseller list, I think in the US for audiobooks. And you can see there's like two audiobooks in there that are heavily discounted, right? There's the first part of the dramatized adaptation a Fourth Wing, and there's a Teacher by Frida McFadden. Now, Fourth Wing, obviously, whether they discount it or not, it's going to be in the top there. But the Teacher by Frida McFadden, I actually had a look at the top 100 audiobooks in Audible, and that title was nowhere in there. That title on Audible was actually ranking in the 200 or 300, whether it's ranking in the top 10 on Apple, right? And the only difference is that on Apple, it's at $3.99. So the publisher is probably running a price promo on that title, maybe in a bunch of places, maybe just on Apple Books, I'm not sure. But the point is they're running a price promotion on Apple, and on Apple, that price promotion is getting them in the top 10, whereas that title on Amazon is like in the top 200 or 300, I don't remember. So price promos really, really work. Obviously, here we're talking about a really big author or a really big title, but maybe if you're not that well known, maybe a price promotion, brings you from the top, I don't know, 50,000 to the top 30,000 or top 20,000. That's kind of how you should think about it. Obviously, the number one platform for audiobook discounts and for featuring and promoting your discounts is Chirp. I think when BookBub came up with Chirp, it was a really big deal for audiobooks in general. And the more we can do to kind of support Chirp as content creators, the more we can encourage the adoption of like price promotions and discounts on the listener side of things, right? Basically, the more we can grow Chirp's list, the more we'll be able to benefit from Chirp's list in the future. So if you're not familiar with Chirp, it's a BookBub owned platform that does the same thing that BookBub does for ebooks, but for the audiobook side. It sends newsletters to its subscribers every day with audiobook deals. So audiobooks are discounted. The big difference between BookBub feature deals and Chirp feature deals is that a BookBub feature deal will send traffic to retailers, right? It will send traffic to Amazon, Apple, wherever you're selling your ebook. So the sales that you get through a BookBub feature deal will further increase your rank and your visibility on those platforms. For Chirp, BookBub actually created its own app, like its own Chirp app, where listeners can buy and listen to the audiobook. So the sales that you will generate through a Chirp deal will not happen on Audible or Apple or Spotify or anywhere else. They will happen on Chirp, right? So you don't get the same kind of organic visibility boost on retailers that you get from a BookBub feature deal, but you still get sales and you get your audiobook in the hands of a bunch of listeners, which is at the end of the day what you should really, really care about, right? So the minimum requirements to get a Chirp deal, I mean, you can just Google that to see all the requirements, but obviously the audiobook needs to be available on Chirp. If you distribute with Authors Republic, I have good news for you. They have a partnership with Chirp. They're one of the only 2 aggregators who have a partnership with Chirp. So your audiobook will automatically be available for sale on Chirp. Then if you want, like there's 2 separate things, right? You can have your audiobook available on Chirp as a marketplace, as a retailer. And then what you really want is a Chirp deal, right? To get the Chirp deal, you need to discount your audiobook. So you need to set a deal price that's going to be for a limited time period between $0.99 and $5.99. You can get away with higher, like maybe traditional publishers can get away with higher price points, right? But as an indie author, I would recommend really keeping it between $0.99 and $5.99. Obviously, that deal price needs to be lower than the listed retailer price. And finally, Chirp deals are month-long promotions. So you need to be ready to discount the price of your book for a month. Meeting these minimum requirements does not guarantee that you'll get a Chirp deal. They still have an editorial team who reviews deals that you submit, same as same as on the BookBub feature deal side of things. Except there's a lot more chances. There's a lot more chances of you getting a Chirp deal than a BookBub feature deal, as long as you have everything nailed on the product page, right? The cover, the blurb, the book has some reviews. Like you still need to have a little bit of clout and a little bit of a track record, or at least an impeccable product page in order to get that Chirp deal. In terms of the cost, you will pay a 10% additional royalty to Chirp during the period of the deal. And in terms of timing, you should plan submissions 4 to 6 weeks in advance. again, if like you have any additional questions about Chirp, just look at their website or ask Authors Republic, who have that special partnership with Chirp. But for me, I think it's a really one of the big game changers when it comes to audiobook marketing, because before wide distribution came about, we didn't really have a way to run price promotions in the first place. And before Chirp came about, we didn't really have a dedicated place where we could advertise our audiobook deals, and now we do. Now we've talked a little bit about, price promos that are more of a wide thing. I'm going to talk about the bundle and the power of the audiobook bundle, which is not necessarily an exclusivity thing, but it does work really, really well on Audible, because the power of the bundle, I think, comes from the fact that, we had for a long time a world ruled by subscription credits, right? So why are audiobook bundles so powerful? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, a bundle, it's basically like if you have a series, putting books 1, 2, and 3 in a bundle together. So what we would call a box set as well, right? Or an omnibus edition, or there's a bunch of terms for that. But doing that for the audiobooks, right? So you create this kind of mega audiobook that's a lot of listening hours, and that's just like books 1, 2, 3 in a series, usually. The reason why those are really, really powerful and popular on the reader side of things is because of Audible's credit-based subscription model, right? While I don't think, Audible does not dominate the audiobook market because it's a very, very fragmented market, it is still the #1 player in that market. And understanding how their subscription model works and how readers try to not game it, but take advantage of it, is really important from a marketing side of things on audiobooks specifically. So Audible's credit-based subscription model works the following way. You pay, I don't know if it's like $9.99, $12.99, it depends on your country, as a listener a month, and you get 1 credit a month. And that credit allows you to basically get an audiobook for free. You can use it to redeem, you can redeem it on any audiobook out there, right? That means that basically you can redeem it on a 3-hour audiobook, same as you can redeem it on a 50-hour audiobook. And because of that credit system, listeners tend to seek to maximize their value per credit, because I'm basically paying $12.99, let's say $12.99 a month. So each audiobook costs me $12.99, no matter the length of the audiobook. Right? If I use that credit on an audiobook bundle, that's books 1, 2, 3, then that single credit, that $12.99, gets me $3, not just 1, but $3. Or if I use it on a very, very long book, like a Brandon Sanderson epic fantasy that's like 50+ hours of audio, that's a great deal. That's a really, really sweet deal, because like suddenly I've got 50+ hours of audio for just $12.99, right? So that's one of the reasons as well why fantasy and sci-fi work quite well in audiobook format. So that's basically where the power of bundles comes from. It's a very compelling, more for the money value offer. It also boosts conversion, right? Because of that more for the money offer. We'll see afterwards that it works really well in ads. And anything that converts really well for any retailer is like the kind of product that they want to put forward, right? If they see that people who land on a specific audiobook bundle, like there's like 2 out of 10 people who view that bundle who purchase it, that makes them a lot of money, like, right? That high conversion percentage is actually really good for them, because at the end of the day, retailers care about the same thing that you do, which is selling books, selling products. So if there's one product in particular that converts really well for them, they're going to put that product front and center. They're going to put it forward. And the great thing about bundles is that if you obviously have a series that's longer than 3 books, then those books 1, 2, 3 introduce listeners to your world brand. And then once they're in there, once they've finished 50+ hours of audio and they've gone through your first 3 books, and you have a series of maybe 5, 6, 10, 20 books, they're very likely to keep going, right? And that's like 1 credit for book 4, 1 credit for book 5, 1 credit for 6, etc., etc., etc. And so it suddenly starts making you a very decent amount of money. It's not just about, one thing I wanted to mention as well about this slide is actually having audiobook bundles is quite favorable when it comes to organic rankings on Amazon as well, right? I'm not going to go into how search works on the Amazon store, but there's one important element of search is that it rewards products that convert well and products that have a high price. So here, for example, I ran a simple search yesterday for epic fantasy in the bookstore, in the overall bookstore, and number one, ahead of Fourth Wing, I get The Keeper Origins, the complete trilogy, books 1, 2, 3. Now, I've never heard of The Keeper Origins by J. Andrews. It's a fairly well-reviewed book. I'm sure it's a great epic fantasy, but yeah, you'll agree it's nowhere near the level of Fourth Wing in terms of fate. Why does it rank number one? Two reasons. One, it probably converts really, really, really well, because when people search for epic fantasy, Amazon probably determines there's a lot of people who search for that who are looking for audiobooks. So it presents 2 audiobooks right there. And because it's a bundle, people get like 3 books in one with their credits, so it converts really well. And the second thing is that in the eyes of Amazon, it's a very high-priced item, right? If you see the price there, it's $59.99, right? It's barred and there's $0.99 aside from it, because Amazon's trying to sell me this Audible membership for $0.99 for the first month, etc. But the actual retail price of that audiobook is $59.99, because it's a super, super long audiobook, right? And so when the author, the publisher of that audiobook, drives sales of that audiobook, that boosts the ranking of that audiobook for search results dramatically, because its price is a factor. The retail value of sales is a factor in the search algorithm on Amazon. So all that to say, bundles work really, really well on Amazon and Audible for a number of reasons. So if you haven't tried them, definitely do that. All right. Do bear in mind that, if you're exclusive with a certain book, you can obviously not put it in a bundle wide, right? But I mean, yeah, that's the same thing as for the ebook side of things. Anyway, bundles don't just work great on Audible. They're also really, really solid marketing tactic elsewhere, right? So first, there's other places that offer subscription models. There's Kobo Plus. If you haven't heard of Kobo Plus, they've had massive growth over the past few years. They've launched, I think, in the United States recently. They're in a bunch of different countries, and they're really, really big in Canada. I don't have stats on audiobooks specifically in Kobo Plus, but I do know that 30% of the top 100 books read in Kobo Plus in 2024, so that's ebooks, in Canada were box sets. So box sets are super popular to Kobo readers already. So I wouldn't be surprised if like audio bundles became incredibly popular with Kobo Plus readers as well, because like same thing, right? You use 1 credit to redeem 3 books because it's in a bundle. And there's also Everend, which is another subscription service that you might have known formerly as Script. Same thing, for any subscription, bundles are going to be great because, 1 credit for multiple books. There's also another reason why bundles work really, really great wide, and it's that even on traditional retailers, audio bundles can offer really good value proposition if you discount them, right? So in this case, we're not just talking about like creating a bundle, we're talking about the strategy we talked about before, price promotions, plus the bundle. So it's like 2 strategies bundled in one. And it becomes something really, really powerful from a marketing standpoint, because 1, it's extremely easy to advertise, right? Not only you're advertising a bundle, you're advertising a bundle that's discounted, right? And the second thing is that it offers healthy profit margins even after substantial discounts. So I'm going to try to illustrate that with an example quickly, right? One issue with kind of box sets on the ebook side of things is that if you want to make that box set really appealing, you need to discount it to $0.99 or $1.99 or like $2.99 max, right? Even if it's 3 books in one, because there's just so many other box sets out there at $0.99. So if you want to run ads to promote a box set, for example, on ebook, on Amazon, on Facebook, and BookBub, etc., you'll have much better conversion if that box set is discounted. The problem with that is that you don't make a lot of money on a $0.99 box set, right? You probably make a few, like 30 cents and 35% royalty rate. So it's going to be very hard for you to recoup the investment that you make in your ads. Right? It can still be a good idea to get more visibility and then get organic sales when the price goes back up, or to get people into your world so that they then buy the other books in the series, etc. But immediately you're not going to recoup your ads investment, and you're probably going to lose quite a lot of money immediately, right? That's not the case with audiobook bundles necessarily, because audiobooks are such an expensive product compared to ebooks. You can discount your audiobook bundle to, $4.99, $5.99, $6.99, $7.99, and that's still a really, really interesting offer. Right? If you look on Chirp, they have a section dedicated to bundles, right? Just to show you how important bundles can be on the audiobook side of things. And you can see here, obviously, these are well-known authors or big publishers, but you've got a bundle by Michael Connelly for $14.97, another one from Nora Roberts for $14.97, right? And these are significant discounts, significant limited time discounts. Even if you discount your bundle a lot more to, let's say, $5.99, if you manage to sell one of those, that you're going to get a lot more money than 35 cents on that. You're going to get enough money to probably be able to recoup the cost of your ads if you do it well, right? If your ads convert to a decent result. And that's where I think audiobook bundles really are amazing, is that not only you can offer a crazy discount on them, like minus 70%, for example, even after that discount, you still have enough of a profit margin to be able to run ads and make your money back. Which leads us to, obviously, advertising on Meta and BookBub, and hopefully getting the best bang for your buck. So as I said, I think Meta and BookBub are by far the two best advertising platforms for audiobooks in particular. I've personally written an entire book on Amazon ads, right? So that is my favorite platform for books in general, but you cannot advertise audiobooks on Amazon. And worse, you cannot see the results of your Amazon ads in terms of audiobook sales, right? Which is very, very annoying. So I hope they change that in the futures. But right now, you can still run Amazon ads, and those Amazon ads will boost your audiobook sales, probably, but it's very hard to get a sense of like how much they boost those sales, and it's not the best platform really for that. Anyway, I'm going to give you some quick tips now on Meta and BookBub advertising, and share a few examples. But I mean, these are obviously pretty complicated topics. I could do an entire presentation just on that. So if you have questions about it, just ask them in a bit. Some quick tips for Meta. So the first thing is obviously that's a tip in general for advertising audiobooks. Focus your money on books that have already demonstrated strong market appeal in all the formats. In other words, if you really struggle to sell your ebook and your print book, and you've tried ads and everything to sell those books and it didn't work, and for whatever reason you decide to invest in an audiobook as well, don't think that the fact that you have the audiobook means the ads for that audiobook specifically are going to work. No, if you're not able, if you're not able to sell your ebook or a print book well, your audiobook is very, very unlikely to sell well. There are some very rare exceptions to that, but that's kind of a ground rule to keep in mind, right? So since audiobooks already cost a bit of money, don't waste your ad money on stuff that's not likely to work. Focus your ad money on books that have already sold pretty well in ebook and print format, and only then try specifically ads to market their audiobook. Next step is to target. If you're going to specifically try to boost your audiobook sales through Meta ads, then you want Meta to target people who are interested in audiobooks. With that, you can still use some interest. People say that interests are dead on Facebook, but they're not. You can still target interests like audiobook, Audible, Spotify. Even if you use those like as Advantage Plus, that will still point Meta in the right direction. Like it will point Meta in the direction of like, okay, this person is looking to reach people interested in audiobooks, basically. So three main interests that I've seen: audiobook, Audible, Spotify, right? Put all those three in there, or just test one at a time. That depends on your strategy, but definitely include those in. Then make sure to signal audio on your text, on your image, on your headline, wherever you can, right? You can use retailer logos, earphones, the square cover, clearly mention audiobook in the text, etc. So basically make it as clear as possible, both to Meta's algorithms and to the end user, that we're talking about an audiobook here, that you're advertising an audiobook, right? If you are running a discount deal, obviously mention that, show price comparisons. If you're advertising a bundle or a very long audiobook, it can be a good idea to highlight total listening hours, something like over 50 hours of thrilling storytelling. And finally, you can try, I've seen some authors experiment with like video ads with a sample of the narration, right? The issue with that is that you really need to find a moment of the narration that's super impactful and that's going to grab people and make them want to listen more, right? So maybe you want to speed up your narration actually a little bit, because you cannot have like ads of 3 minutes of audio, right? It needs to be ideally no more than 30 seconds or 1 minute. So if you're going to have an excerpt of your narration, it needs to really, really, really grab people and be super impactful. So I'll give you a couple of examples of meta ads creatives. These were not made by me; they were made by my partner, who's a marketer. But you can see the idea, right? Tagline: something to signal the audiobook. In this case, it's the Audible logo, because this was an Audible exclusive book. Cover, ideally, or at least you should have something on the image that clearly evokes the cover. Here, both of them, both of them are done. Nowadays, like with AI, if you're open to using AI for image generation, you can test a million of these different types of images. But this in particular converted super well. And then another option you have, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to listen to that, but it's creating a little slideshow like this, or a little video, where you basically try to hook people. This could be for the ebook, it could be for the print book, it could be for the audiobook. It just depends on like what you put at the end, right? Here at the end, we clearly signal that it's available on Kindle Unlimited for those who are interested in getting the ebook. That's available on audiobook. We have the square cover to signal that we're talking that it's available in audio. And this ad in particular converted pretty well. You will notice that what made this ad convert so well, it's a bundle, right? It's books 1, 3. And there's no secret there. We talked about it before. All right, let me see if I can switch to the next slide. There we go. All right, now some quick BookBub advertising tips. So BookBub, on top of having Chirp, where you can submit for a Chirp feature deal and where you can sell your audiobook in general, you can also run ads. You can run self-serve ads through the BookBub advertising platform. And in fact, BookBub is the only ads platform out there that lets you target audiobook listeners specifically. If you target audiobook listeners only, your ads will show up at the bottom of not BookBub newsletters, but Chirp newsletters. If you receive Chirp newsletters, I invite you to look at the next Chirp newsletter you get for daily deals. Scroll down to the bottom of that newsletter, and you'll see an ad. That is an ad that was placed manually by an author through their self-serve ad system, right? So that's where basically BookBub ads can be. I think BookBub ads are not that great anymore for ebooks, but I think they can still work pretty well for audiobooks because they allow you to target audiobook listeners specifically. So it's kind of the only channel where you can just do exclusive audiobook marketing if you really want to hone in on that format. BookBub ads are all about testing 2 elements, because you got 2 elements to play with. The targeting, so you can target authors and genres. I recommend mixing, definitely putting your genre in there and then testing 1 author at a time. There's a whole methodology that you can research out there. David Gaughran has got a great book on BookBub ads for authors, for example, that I highly recommend. But basically, you want to find authors that have enough of a following on BookBub to deliver impressions, and then you want to test them 1 at a time. And the metric you're going to look at is the click-through rate, right? You want to find the author target with the highest click-through rate. And the other element you want to test is your creative. Here you have to create a slightly squarish but a bit landscapey image. And these are 4 images that I just copied over from a blog post by BookBub on the top performing BookBub ads. I don't know if that was of 2020 for audiobooks. So you can see here the type of images that people run. Same thing, if there's a discount, highly advertise it, make it there. Use colors that offer a strong contrast that attract the eye. If you advertise a bundle, make it very clear that it's a bundle. And yeah, all of these ads do that, right? The first one, there's like the $2.99 strong contrast on it. The one on to the right, blue and gold works really well to attract the eye as a color. It also echoes the colors of the cover, and you have a massive bundle that's of Cinderella retellings. Third one, same blue gold color palette, and it's not a bundle, but it's a massive price discount from $16.99 to $0.99. And the last one is $4. There's like the last one doesn't look great from a design perspective, but it advertises a bundle that is on top of that discounted, right? So there's like the two really strong elements, bundle plus discount. That just works, right? You don't need a crazy good image, it just works. So yeah, these are the kind of creatives that you can play around with and try. The only thing I'll say when it comes to advertising audiobooks, it's very hard to measure your success, right? Amazon opened Amazon Attribution as part of Amazon Ads a couple of years ago, allowing you to track the results of like your ads and promotions, etc. But sadly, that isn't available for audiobook products, right? You cannot track you basically cannot input an audiobook product into Amazon Attribution to create a trackable link. So you cannot really use it to track the sales of your audiobooks. So still to this day, the best way to measure the impact of your ads is to compare your sales to a baseline. And here I'm giving the example of Amazon, right? Audible, because that's still the kind of number one retailer. So if you're going to run ads, that's probably the number one place where people are going to buy. But this is valid on any other retailer. If for whatever reason you wanted to use, Chirp to boost your sales on, I don't know, Apple Books or Spotify or another place specifically, you can just use the same strategy to track the results. Right? Look at the rank. Basically, compare your sales before the ads and after the ads. What we call comparing to a baseline, right? If before the ads you used to get 1-2 sales of your audiobook every day, and after the ads you get like 3-4 sales of your audiobook every day, then you can deduce that your ads are generating 2-3 sales every day, right? And so that's what you can attribute to your ads. Since it can take a little bit of time to get those numbers, right, from the various retailers, what you can do is watch the rank on the various retailers that offer a rank. So if you're advertising, for Audible or in particular, watch your Amazon rank. So here if I were advertising this audiobook bundle by Michael R. Miller, that's currently ranking 6,500 in the store, I would take this as a baseline. Okay, without ads, this ranks at 6,500. Where can I get it with ads? If I start running the ads, I'm going to compare the rank maybe 1 or 2 days from now. And if it hasn't moved higher than the 6,000 rank, then it means my ads aren't selling books. If it's at the 2,000, 1,000 rank, then it means I'm selling a lot of audiobooks, right? And that's how you go about it. You experiment with creatives and audiences one at a time, because you cannot run more than one experiment at a time because you're comparing to baseline. And the last tip I wanted to talk about, actually I'm running a little bit out of time, but I'll stay for extra time for questions, is selling direct, right? I'm sure a lot of you have followed the buzz around direct sales in the past few years, and selling direct can definitely be powerful for audiobooks in particular. Obviously, the number one requisite for that is to not be exclusive. All right, so the benefits of direct audiobook sales are the same benefits of direct ebook or print sales. You keep 100% of the royalties. You retain full price control. You get your readers' emails. You can run conversion ads. So instead of like running traffic ads to Audible, where you have to compare to a baseline to know if it works, you can actually run meta ads to your own store, optimized for the purchase event, and you can see within your meta dashboard your actual ROI, right? So that's a lot more powerful. Basically, direct sales combined with advertising, a lot more powerful. And you can also offer exclusive upsells and bundles and stuff like that. So for example, here I'm on, I think, Jillian Dodd's store. She's selling her audiobooks direct. Sometimes the ebooks are not available because those ebooks are in KU, but her audiobooks are wide, so they're available through her store. And you can see here in the top, she has a little ribbon that advertises get 7 audiobooks for just $9.99 this week only, right? So that's the kind of really cool limited time promos that you can run on your store. Then you can upsell people on the store, and that's where I think audiobook sales in particular that's that's where I think you can really boost your audiobook sales through your own stores, through upsells. So the typical upsell that I personally love as a reader when I'm buying direct is if I grab the ebook, I want the author to give me the option to grab the audiobook as well. So this is like the screenshot on the right from Joanna Penn. If I say, okay, I'm interested in the How to Write Nonfiction second edition ebook, hey, you want the ebook? Get the audio as well. And you know what? I'll throw in a PDF workbook as well for just $18.29, right? Instead of $29.97 or whatever it is. So I can upgrade my order and get a discount and have all of these. The one thing I wish that we had was Whisper Sync for direct sales, but that's another thing. I'm just really big fan of the Whisper Sync feature, but I'm sure it's going to come up. Read of some like services out there offering that. Anyway, another upsell you can do is like if someone's buying an audiobook direct from you, sell them the bundle, right? Here's on, I think, probably on Jillian store as well. I think so, I don't remember. Is like basically, I added book one to the cart and I get a pop-up telling me, hey, you added book one. Do you want the whole bundle? I can give you a very, very sweet discount, $85 instead of $170, right? That's a massive discount. It's still a lot of money. Like if I end up purchasing that bundle, that's a nice chunk of money for the author, right? And it's a very sweet deal for me. If it's an author I love and I just want to get into one of her new series and I know I'm going to love that series, I'm very likely actually to take her up on that offer and buy the entire bundle from her, right? Because it's a very sweet discount for me. And the last thing that direct sales allows you to do is to just like be creative, right? It's your store. You sell direct, you have the entire control over the whole experience, and you can do all sorts of great stuff. You can offer an audiobook for free. You can even partner with other authors to offer a bunch of audiobooks for free. So this was, I think this was a few years ago, a bunch of romance authors got together and ran same thing as the Stuff Your Kindle Day, but for audiobooks. And they created a website, romanceaudiobookworms.com, where all of them were offering one or several audiobooks for free, right? So it's a direct sales website where all the products were free. And they were all audiobooks, and it's like a Stuff Your Earbuds Day, and they all co-promoted it. And that's a great way to basically, expand your listenership. You're not making direct money out of that because you're giving those audiobooks away for free, but you're expanding your listenership. And if all of those are first in series and their listeners love them, they're going to buy your audiobooks. Plus, you're selling through your own store, so or like a co-created store, so you own those email addresses, right? You can then remarket those people. You can then basically email them saying, hey, I saw that you downloaded my audiobook through the Romance Audiobookworms site. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, book 2 in that series, I'm actually running a deal on it right now on my own website. You can get the audiobook for just $4.99 or $5.99, right? And if they take you up on that, you can actually remarket them after a few weeks saying, hey, I noticed you got book 1 and book 2. Are you interested in audiobook 3? I'm running a deal just for you right now. With this coupon code, you can get $4 off of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's like, there's basically infinite possibilities when it comes to direct sales, which is like, I'm always really excited with direct sales. And audiobooks, I think nowadays are still a little bit missing from a lot of the stores that I look at least in terms of how they're integrated in the upsells and the bundles and the offers, et cetera. All right, so one thing you might be wondering is like, after all this, whether you can potentially hire someone to help you with your marketing, not necessarily for the audiobook specifically, but in general. The answer for that is yes. Obviously, that's why we created Reedsy, among a lot of other reasons. And this is my cue to plug that little link again. Through this link, you can get $50 off $50 of credit whenever you sign up. So you can sign up now, even if you don't intend on hiring anyone in the near future. You'll get those $50 of credits in your account, and you can use them whenever you want, right? And if you're looking for, a marketer to run meta ads or pop-up ads for your epic fantasy audiobook bundle, you can find someone to do that on Reedsy. And I'm actually more than happy to recommend specific marketers for that. You just have to email me for it. I'm going to skip this because we don't have time for it. I will include this in here as well, though. That's my free book on how to market a book. You can grab it at this URL. You can grab it on any retailer. It's free everywhere, perma-free. And a lot of the strategies I talked about it today in terms of audiobooks, I cover those in the book for the book in general. right, for the ebook print, etc. And if you download it through this link in particular, you will get signed up to my marketing newsletter, which I send every couple of weeks, and I give little tips and ideas and strategies like that in there. And that's it. Again, you've got my email address. I know we've got not a lot of time left for questions, but I'll stick around for as many questions as you want to throw at me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. We do have some questions that came in. Two were related to distribution, so I thought I could just answer those quickly. Somebody asked, is Amazon part of the Authors Republic network for distribution? Yes, we distribute to the 3 channels that ACX hits. So we distribute to Amazon, Audible, and Apple. You'd want to be non-exclusive to use us to distribute to them, or if you started off exclusive through ACX, and you want to move to non-exclusive, you could opt out of those channels and distribute wide through Authors Republic everywhere else. But we do distribute to Amazon and those channels. Second was, how do I get a book on Chirp? So you use Authors Republic as an aggregator. You need to go through an aggregator, and we distribute directly to Chirp. So just those 2, I think, were pretty easy to answer. And then there's, of course, several for you, Ricardo. One question is how best to use promo codes.
And to be honest, I don't have a ton of experience with promo codes. Specifically, I don't think they're the most exciting feature ever. But the way I see them used is mostly for reviews, right? You can basically give away the audiobook to whoever you want. So if there are some, specific audiobook reviewers out there that you want to gift the audiobook to so that they hopefully listen to it and leave a review, that's a good use of it. You can give it to your narrator as well. Narrators, I haven't talked about it here, but narrators sometimes can help with the marketing. They've got a network of listeners or followers. You can give them those promo codes and say, if you want to share with on your social media, wherever you want. So it's basically ways to give your audiobook away for free for discoverability.
Yeah, I agree. We see it a lot for reviews. And then maybe if you have a series, if you want to use it as a way to give away like the first book in your series to generate interest for the rest of the series, that can be helpful, assuming you have a series. Okay, another question is, do you have to pay to use all these marketing strategies? Are there any that work organically?
I think most of the ones I talked about were kind of work organically, aside from advertising on Meta and BookBub. Obviously, the rest of them are all about how you present and where you kind of sell and distribute the audiobook. I think Chirp takes a percentage of royalties for the deals. So I don't think they charge up front for anything yet. And yeah, creating bundles, discounting your audiobook, all that works organically, right? Then you can use any kind of strategies to promote the audiobook. I've talked about ads because that's what I think works best and what I'm most familiar with. But if you're really good on TikTok, for example, and you're starting to have a following in there, that's definitely something you should talk about on there, right? As long as you have a compelling offer, I think that's what most of the time is the issue when it comes to marketing and marketing audiobooks in particular, is having a compelling offer, right? Once you have that compelling offer, it's fairly easy to spread the word about it, and the word can spread on its own through word of mouth afterwards. So I think 99% of the work should go towards compelling that really, really compelling offer. And afterwards, the marketing is a lot easier.
Thank you. Okay, somebody asked, do some languages sell better than others?
I'm only familiar with like the English speaking market. I've heard that the German speaking marketing is growing a lot. I've heard of authors having really good success with translated works and audio in German, but you probably have actual more data than I do on this.
Yeah, English continues to be the largest. German is growing along with, I think, French and Spanish as well. So there's opportunity in other languages. I think they're growing markets, and like you said, translations, but English is overwhelmingly still the largest in the market. Okay, somebody said, I have a book on Audible and a similar one, which is on Amazon as an audiobook, which has a different cover. Which one should I put on Chirp? So the Audible or the Amazon?
I'm not sure I understood that question.
I think it might just be a different cover. And if that's the case, I don't know if you have any stats on, which one might be selling
Yeah.
better, or any feedback or reviews. But maybe since you already have some data, you could take a look at that and see if there's one that seems to be more favorable than the other, and use that one to distribute wide. So to Chirp, and then if you're going to go wide and go to Chirp, you really might as well take advantage of everything wide with libraries and Spotify and all the other channels as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we could probably take maybe one more question. Which ad platform should I start with? What should I spend to start off? And I think you spoke to this a bit, but they were asking about ROI as well. So I guess maybe just
Mhm.
where to begin with the ad platforms.
Um, it depends what your intent is. I think if your intent is specifically to grow audiobook sales, like for whatever reason you really, really want to grow that format, then BookBub is a good place to start, because that you can really just exclusively promote the audiobook to exclusively listeners who are subscribed to the Chirp newsletter. I will say that I've seen the efficacy of BookBub ads decline quite a bit over the years. So my preferred advertising platform is Meta. And on Meta, you're not going to be able to just like target audiobook listeners in your genre. Your ads are going to be spread probably far and wide. But as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I don't think like marketing is format specific, right? So I would probably start on Meta. There's a bit of a learning curve. So don't give up immediately, but you can start as low as $5 a day. And in terms of ROI, it really depends on what you advertise. My experience specific advertising audiobooks mostly in epic fantasy, and with a few authors I've worked with, it was almost easier to advertise their audiobooks and get a good ROI than advertise their ebooks for epic fantasy specifically. And they were having a more than positive ROI. If we start with bundles, then the ROI goes way up, way up. Especially if like it's bundled with books 1, 3, and the series is much longer, because you factor in read through at that point, and so you can make really a lot of money for that. But yeah, it depends on the product.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, well, I know we're a little over time. Thank you again, Ricardo. It was great to have you on. I'm sure everyone learned a lot. If there are questions you had that were not answered, you have Ricardo's email. Feel free to also send us a message at hello@authorsrepublic.com if there's anything we can help you with. But thank you all for joining. Thank you again, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.